everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you. For us, it's morning, but in your evening. I'm located in the United States on the East Coast in Boston, Massachusetts. We're just about to start our summer vacation for students. So my students are all at their homes and spending time with family and kind of relaxing. And let's see, we are getting ready also for our holiday for the 4th of July, the Independence Day for the United States. So it's a fun time right now.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Shruti. I am ninth grader from GPHS Penamaka. I would like to ask you a question. My question is, what kind of psychological tactics should teachers learn in dealing with unruly students? Thank you, ma'am.
What a great question. So some things that we want to think about, psychologists say about dealing with changing behavior of students or anyone. They say that behaviors can be increased if you reward them, and behaviors can be decreased if you punish them. So when dealing with unruly students, we want to encourage good behavior through rewards. Another thing they say is that we should make small changes. So if a student is being unruly or problematic, you want to think about where you want them to go, but you have to make a small change. So if a student is struggling with polite or appropriate language, you couldn't necessarily reward them for being perfect. You would think of what is one small goal, say, in the classroom for 1 hour, you will only use polite words. And after they use polite words for an hour, you would give them some sort of reward that you decide on, either candy or recess or a small toy. And you make those small changes through those positive rewards. Another thing psychologists say, they debate, is whether you should reward the student every time they do the good behavior that's improved, or if you should do it more unpredictably. If you reward a student every single time, as soon as you stop rewarding them, they will become unruly again. So what psychologists say is that you need to reward them, but in unpredictable amounts of time, like a lottery or a slot machine. So one time you would be rewarded after you did it right once, but the next time you get rewarded would be after you did it correctly 5 times. But then the next time, maybe it's 2 times, and then the next time it's 10 times. So because you never know when the reward is coming, you will then always do the good behavior. This is why, I don't know if any of you guys have social media. If you watch TikTok or Instagram or any of the kind of video applications, they work on this idea. They use unpredictable rewarding so that you don't know when your favorite video is going to come, so you always watch it. So that's what your teachers are going to use with you from now on.
Ma'am,
Good morning.
my name is Harka. I am a ninth grader from GPHS Pilmaka. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
My question is, what role do emotions and motivation play in influencing behavior according to psychological theories?
Yeah. So I'm sure you guys are not surprised to learn or know that emotions and motivation play a big role in explaining our behavior. I'm going to focus mostly on emotions. I'll talk or on motivation. I'll talk a little bit about emotions as well. But psychologists have lots of different theories about what motivates us. One of the first theories that isn't very popular now, but they say we are motivated by our instincts. What this means, it kind of thinks of us as instinctual, more like animals. We are animals, but it makes our kind of motivations really, really simplistic. So our behavior is, they say, motivated by survival. We do behaviors so that we can get more food, so that we can stay alive, so trying to fulfill our basic needs. And so this is why we also see humans acting really similarly. All humans are motivated to survive. So they say the explanation for why humans are all the same is that we behave based on our instincts. We're all just looking to get food, reproduce, and stay safe. Other psychologists say that we're motivated just to kind of keep things level. So this is a drive reduction theory. They say that we're not quite as instinctual as the first theorist said. It's not all instincts, but some of it has to do with when you're thirsty, you're motivated to drink so that you're not thirsty anymore. So you don't drink too much, you don't drink too little. It sounds a little bit like Buddhism. You're kind of looking for that middle path. That you're always driven to reduce your needs, but to a moderate level. Other theories say we are motivated by thrill seeking, that humans get really, really easily bored. So we're motivated and we act in order to give ourselves entertainment or kind of adrenaline boost. So that this is why people like to climb mountains. There's no instinctual reason to climb a mountain. It won't help you survive. It also isn't just right or middle path. So the reason people skydive or do bungee jumping or climb mountains or try and swim really far or run really far is that we are sensation seekers. We're always looking to push our bodies and we like that thrill of the adrenaline rush. Three more theories. There's lots of theories of motivation. Incentive theory goes back to the behavior and with an unruly student that we are motivated by rewards. This kind of makes us sound like trained animals, but we will do anything for a treat. If someone's going to give us something, we will do it. If we think about school, oftentimes our biggest incentive is grades. But other theorists say, no, it's not about external rewards. Humans are motivated by internal rewards. That like what you are personally passionate about will drive you. And it doesn't matter if you get a good grade. It doesn't matter if you get a treat. You are going to do that behavior because you personally believe in it. But the theory I want to talk the most about is stress theory. And what this theory says is that you are going to have and this is really relevant to you as a student, you will be maximum motivated if you have the perfect amount of stress. So stress is not bad. Too little stress is bad because then you're bored. If you've ever had a course that was too easy, your motivation drops. There's not enough stress. Stress, you don't want the stress to be too much. You've also probably been asked to do something in your life or been in a course that was just way too hard. And it was so hard that maybe you quit. What stress theory says is it's about finding the perfect amount of stress. So if you can think of a time where there was a little bit of pressure on you and it actually had you perform well. I know for me, sometimes I'm asked to speak in front of crowds and I actually do better because of the pressure of knowing people will watch. But if you said speak on TV, that would be too much stress for me and I would say no and I would quit. So the way to get the highest motivation is finding good stress or the perfect level of stress. We want the task to be not too easy and not too hard. You have to find a middle level of stress. When we look about emotions, one thing to know is that our brains play a really big role and that our brains are wired to kind of think two ways. There's one way that our neurons and our brain paths go where we will act based on thinking and then there's another way our brain can operate where we act without thinking. So there's this shortcut that allows you to act without thinking. So sometimes we act solely based on emotions and sometimes we act based on a combination of emotions and thinking. That was a lot of information, but
yeah.
Good morning, ma'am. This is Pranati from GPHS Penumaka. I want to ask you a question, ma'am.
yes.
How can psychology and persuasion skills be used positively in teaching?
So if I'd say if there was one question you guys are going to listen to the answer to, this question is a really important one. Because if you want to think about how do you convince people to do what you want them to do? And psychology says a lot about that. So one thing you can do is there's a type of convincing or persuasion. It's called peripheral route persuasion that gets really fast results and snap judgments, but doesn't lead to lots of changes. But you can make an emotional appeal. So sometimes people try to convince other people to do things or follow their lead based on emotional appeals. So you will either shock them by showing them something that's really, really scary and say, don't do this because this is what might happen. And people will stop doing it, at least for a short period of time. Oftentimes, this is what they do to try and encourage people to not use drugs or alcohol or different things that are bad for our bodies. They'll show what can happen that's really bad. This is also sometimes if you're trying to get someone to follow you, if you can get a celebrity to endorse what you're doing, that will make other people follow that way. You can think of different products, oftentimes different musicians, movie stars or TV stars will promote a product. They don't know anything about that product, but they're famous. And if you see your favorite celebrity doing something, you often will do it. Another way to convince people or to change people's behavior is by using facts. You can actually argue and share with people about facts and show them like what the factual reasons why. This takes more time to change people's ideas and behavior, but once it changes, then it's changed forever. Oftentimes, scientists have been using this with trying to educate the world about climate change. They've been using all of the facts and figures and showing the dangers of global warming and using fossil fuels. Two more techniques. Let's say you want something. There's something called the foot in the door. Let's say, I don't know, the examples I can think of are all from my students' context, so I don't know if these will make sense in your context, but let's say a student wants, they want something, they want a new piece of clothing, or they want their parents to buy them something, and it's a little expensive and it's too much money. When you ask your parents, you don't want to go with that big ask to begin with. Instead, you ask for something small. So you ask for something very, very, very little, and then they maybe say yes. Then you ask for something a little bit bigger and they say yes. And then you ask for something a little bit bigger than that and they say yes. And you work your way up to the bigger ask. Another strategy is think about what you want and ask for something even better. So you go in, this is when you bargain. So if someone said you want to buy a bag of rice and you want to pay $5 for it, you are going to start and say, you're going to say, I only want to pay $1 for that. And the person will say, absolutely not. And then you'll slowly move up to that offer of $5. So start with a really, really low or really, really high offer that you know won't work to try and get to the middle offer that you have. That's called the door in the face strategy. Give them an unreasonable offer to begin with that you know will never be accepted, and then negotiate back to the offer you really wanted. If you had started and said, I want to pay $5 for that bag of rice, they would have bargained for more expensive. But when you start with a really cheap and unfair offer and then move to the more moderate one, you're more likely to get what you want. Good morning.
My name is Maunika. I am a 9th grader from GPHS Penmaka. I would like to ask you a question. My question:
Yes.
How can psychological knowledge be used to improve mental health and well-being?
Yes. So this is a great one as well. How can psychology help us be happier? We all want to be happy. We all want to feel good. So psychology has spent a lot of time focusing on people who are not feeling well or struggling or having a hard time. But there is a new school of psychology called positive psychology, which focuses on how we can increase well-being or how we can be happier instead of always focusing on when things go wrong. There's a really interesting study that happens every 5 years or so that looks at the world's happiest countries and why they are so happy. So currently the happiest countries in the world are Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Netherlands, Costa Rica, and Norway. These are the happiest places in the world. Neither India or the United States are up there. But what this World Happiness Study has said is that kindness matters. When people perceive in their country or in their community that people are kind, it has a much greater impact than money. So one of the things we think is that money will make us happy. And money, a certain amount of money does make us happy because everyone needs money to live. You need money for food, you need money for clothes, you need money for school, you need money for your house. But at a certain point, the studies show after you have that amount of money you need to live, what matters more is that if you believe you live in a community that someone would return your wallet if you lost it, that is the greatest indicator of if you will be happy, not if you were to make double the amount of money. Another thing that positive psychology tells us is that gratitude, which is something you have to practice and do, it doesn't just happen, is the best way, one of the best ways to increase your happiness or increase your feelings of well-being. So what is often suggested is that every day you should have a journal or a place where you sit and you think or you write down all of the things that you are grateful for. That if we practice focusing our minds on what we have and what's going well, instead of what we don't have and what's really challenging, that we're likely to do better. Some other small things that psychology says about doing how to feel better. It says exercise, drink lots of water, buy experiences, not things, spend time with friends, think about other people and helping other people, spend time outside in nature. And sometimes they talk about act happy. If you act a certain way, eventually you will feel a certain way. So those are all some examples of how positive psychology tells us we can improve our well-being.
Okay, thank you so much, Kim. Kim, here I would like to ask you, psychology is one of the sciences that every teacher has to master to deal with the students. But unfortunately, some teachers, though they have little knowledge about the psychology, but they are unable to deal with this different kinds of students, because in a classroom consists of different students with different mindsets. So in order to deal with the unruly students, we need to adopt one strategy, and to deal with the bright students, we need to have one more approach. So we need to have different approaches while dealing with the different kind of students. So what kind of role does psychology play in the life of teachers?
I would say, as you kind of said, that it plays it's a major role. If you learning about psychology helps you be more successful. And I think it starts with, I also know that when I go into the classroom, that I need to make sure that I'm okay, because then it helps me be better at thinking of the different things to do with students. If I go into I know from psychology, if I go into class and I'm tired, if I go into class and I'm upset about something one of my kids did earlier in the morning, that then I'm not prepared to deal with my students and the challenges they have. So the first thing psychology tells me is it's important to take care of myself and to come into class calm and ready and relaxed. And then I know in terms of, like you said, you have to choose different strategies for different students. That the high achieving students will need one strategy. Students who are struggling, some students really just need you to sit down and talk to them and connect with them as a person first. They need to feel that personal connection, to know you care about them, you care about their emotions. Then they feel safe, then they're ready to learn. Sometimes students don't want that. They're the thing that makes them most motivated is more information. So they want a riddle or a joke or a challenge to connect. And then oftentimes, although we talked about with unruly students and changing their behavior, sometimes when students we know are misbehaving, doesn't have anything to do with what's going on in the classroom. It has to do with things, the same way things that happened at home or things that are happening with friends. And I don't know if this is the case in your school, but a big change that's happened in the United States is we have more and more actual psychologists, like clinical psychologists in our school, so that we can say, hey, to a student, it looks like you're having a really hard time today. It seems like there's probably something else going on. I'm going to have you go talk to the counselor to get some support. And when you're ready, come back to class so that you can learn. So one big change in the last 10 years in the United States, because I teach psychology, but I'm not a psychologist. So we have actual psychologists in the school so that as students are really to also know that sometimes I need to ask for help from someone else to help the students.
Okay, thank you. So before we close the session, may I request you to take us outside your room so that we can see what morning look like in your city or town?
Yeah, let's see. So here, today it's raining and a little overcast, but I live in the city. There's lots of trees, but it kind of, you can see we can try and get outside out on the deck. Here's my son. Let's see, do you want to say hi?
Hi. Hi.
You say hi. Take you guys outside. It's a little chilly and a little rainy, but we've got trees and houses.
Yes.
And
so beautiful.
cars.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for offering us the tour. And so may I request you now to give a message to my students and teachers in my region as well.
Yeah, so I encourage my message to you, students and teachers, is that idea of finding the right level of stress. I'm going to come back to that. Like, find something every day. You don't want things to be too easy. You don't want things to be too hard. You always want to be growing a little. And when things are too stressful or too easy, then we're not at our best as humans. So find that perfect level of stress, a little bit of pressure so you can keep growing.